So welcome to the platform updates for the Skillable system for May 2025. As a number of you that have attended these sessions or watched previous videos will be aware, we've got a lot of work going on in the background, revolving around rebuilding our user interface and actually changing the way some of the workflows to try and reduce the amount of clicking, make stuff more efficient for you so you can do more much quicker. So a lot of the things that happen in terms of the development work, there's nothing visual to see. And when there is things that are available to see, I do bring them. So as some of you will know, I've shown you things like the framework for the new lab profile page, for example. So these things are always coming along. So we just happen to be in one of those lulls at this moment where most of the stuff going on is back end. Okay, we had a big start to the year with the new instructions editor. We had features like VM endpoints that we released and things. So some pretty big features. And then, we are still obviously releasing features that you can see, but just a little bit low at the moment. So we've only got features for May, which really revolve around the Skillable Studio platform. Okay, so we'll just have a quick walk through these features. So the first thing that we're actually doing is we're changing the way our web display engine works. So what is our web display engine? So most people are familiar with our web display engine with respect to containers. So if you've got a Docker container and that Docker container has a web front end, rather than display a command line environment, you can just choose to display the web interface. Okay, now there were a number of websites, WordPress would be a prime example, but there was many other websites where this web display feature couldn't really handle the website very well. Okay, so we've introduced a new model for actually being able to work with those web applications, which we now call the subdomain model, which is now the default. So this feature is actually enabled for this, and it's also enabled for VM endpoints, which again allows more comprehensive web applications to work. If any of you work with Linux, you might be familiar with products like Cockpit. So Cockpit was a web application for administering Linux that didn't work using our endpoints, but it now does. So great option to have, and it just really expands the capabilities and the universality of these features. Little pet hate of mine, Lab Advisor. Lab Advisor obviously gives you lots of little tips about what to actually do with labs if they're not configured correctly. One of the things that was really frustrating, if you looked at a Lab Advisor rule, it might come back and say, you've got all these deleted lab profiles, which are causing this rule to fail. Okay. Well, the problem is, if it's a deleted lab profile, there's nothing you can go and edit and fix because it's deleted. Okay. Now, I'm more likely the only person that deletes lab profiles, so it really annoyed me. But fortunately, I've managed to get the engineering team so that deleted lab profiles don't appear in the Lab Advisor reports anymore. Couple of things that we've done around the instructions editor. So one of these, I was going to start off by showing you these. So I'm actually just going to go and find, hopefully, my browser. So if I go and find a lab profile, in here will do the job. That one will do. If I just edit the instructions, and we have the instruction editor here, okay, on the left-hand side, we've actually got these little sort of boxes. Okay, now you can see effectively the width of these is fixed because these objects don't really change in terms of the details that are in them. That's perfectly okay. However, that did cause a problem for text swaps, because one of the problems you can have with text swaps is you could turn around and say, I'd like to find, I don't know, Excel, and actually replace it with the most popular spreadsheet application for the last 20 years or whatever. I'm just obviously making stuff up. And the problem you actually have is when you create that text swap, you can't really see all the text in here. Okay, and the problem is you can often have text swaps which the first piece of text is pretty similar. So how do I know which one I want or which one I'm looking for? Which one do I want to edit? So for the text swaps, we've now put in the drag handle so that you can actually move that about and then see the full text and things. So to try and make that a bit easier for you. Okay, so just wanted to sort of highlight that feature we've got there. Okay, so that's a change. Activity groups. This is really to add some functionality that was lost when we brought in the new editor. So we'll look at activity groups later on. It's obviously one of the things we're going to cover. In the old editor, if you had a group and you had multiple activities in it, you could move them up and down. You could change the order. Okay, that ordering got removed when we built the new user interface. So that functionality has just been restored. The other thing that's also been added is if you've got activities in groups and you've got the group in the instructions, when you went to the activities page and looked at the reference stuff, it didn't show stuff that was in groups. It didn't show the group information here. So in this case, all that lot would have been blank in this instance. But now you can see that it adds the groups and the activities that are in now. Okay, so you can see that all that's working sort of maybe as you would have expected it to, but it just didn't work correctly out the box. Other things that we've changed with the new instructions editor. Numbered lists were a bit of a problem. Sometimes when people were creating numbered lists, it would start at 0, not 1. Okay. If you put an entry into the middle of the list, it wouldn't renumber the whole list correctly and things. If you indented, it wouldn't number correctly and things. So all those sort of list numbering issues have been fixed. Okay, just so it works as you would expect it to, as maybe, again, a word processor works, those sort of things. Now we're going to talk about outcomes. Okay, so we'll get into this in more detail when we get to outcomes. But one of the things outcomes can do is they can manipulate variables, and that includes create them. Now, there was a little bug that if you used an outcome to create a variable, it didn't actually display the variable in the instructions editor until you closed the instructions editor and reopened it. So that's just been fixed. So that's just an improvement now. Okay. Quality of life improvement. VM endpoints. So first and foremost, we've fixed an RDP screen resizing problem. So it actually, there was a problem where you could end up with RDP screens just being like little squares in the top left-hand corner. That's been resolved now. And again, it's got the same new subdomain technology so that we handle complex websites much, much better. So I talked about that already. Same technology as the container technology. And something else that's been fixed that was a real annoyance for me. Okay, again, it's me. These sort of things pick on me. So there was a bug with the new dashboard, which it seemed nobody spotted other than me. When you went to the lab profiles page, which shows you the lab profiles you've been editing, okay, it didn't show you any lab profiles that were newer than 90 days in terms of when you last edited them or made changes to them. Okay, so effectively that list was always 90 days out of date. So as like tomorrow come, you'd see, you know, one lot of days stuff pop in from 90 days ago. Okay, as you can see now, it actually has the stuff right from today. So this is now working correctly. There was just some sort of hard-coded number in there which was causing a problem. So that's now been fixed and resolved. Okay. So really quick set of updates there, things that are going on in the back of Studio, okay, and things that you can see and touch, and a lot of those you might not even notice on a day-to-day basis. In this section, when we start doing the main subject, you will see there are other new features. So stuff that I could have mentioned in there, but technically they've not been released yet, so I didn't want to, so I'm going to save them for the actual primary content. So I'm just going to pause for a second just to make sure nobody's got any questions on any of the updates. So most of them are just quality of life, usability things. Oh, so the Q&A, bear with a second. We don't have any update. A good question there, Dan. Well, we don't have any updates on the AI translation feature at the moment. What I can tell you about that is it's currently in our discovery and refinement phase. So ultimately, currently, our program and product managers are working out what the next things they're going to do, what things they've got to fix. Like there are some bits that it translates instructions that it shouldn't do and bits and pieces. So hopefully we should see some updates to that coming in the coming months, and hopefully maybe something before the end of the summer. And actually, one of the things that's really important with that, which is such a great question, is operationally we have certain things that we have to sort of improve in our platform. So, for example, one of the things this year is actually to improve our platform if people want to use sort of simulator type environments. And so we've got a whole load of work going on with those. But another place is actually, making the AI features better, more of them, those sort of things. And the instruction translation feature is one of the ones which is obviously in focus, because technically it's not released. It's in beta. You've got to have a special permission to have access. But actually, from a product point of view, maybe 80% of it has already been done. Okay. If there's anything that you think of from an update point of view, if you want to email me, I can make sure I can get that across to the correct team, because obviously they're in that phase of actually looking at what they're going to do. Okay. So feel free to email me, paul.gregory@skillable.com, and I can just pass on those ideas. Obviously, the more detail you can put in, the better.